not as of yet. But we are now ready to go live.
You're not talking about me, Kathy. Are you talking about
No.
a different?
Kathy Thomas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just-
We're ready
you
to go
just-
live, Mayor.
Pardon?
We're ready to go live.
Okay, well, I guess we'll start without. So I would like to call to order the Monday, August 17th meeting of the City of Monona City Council. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Groupie.
Here.
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Goforth.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Core.
Here.
Alder Thomas.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. But now Brian has disappeared. Seeing another page or something?
I'm up on top.
Oh, I guess I'm just not seeing you on my screen. All right. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I think I have to go to a different view here or something.
Full screen, Mayor.
Yeah. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes
I'll move
of the August 3rd meeting? Did someone second?
Second.
Any corrections or additions?
I had one.
Okay,
I don't think I made the motion to approve the oh gosh, the easement. Yes, thank you.
I think I did. I think Doug seconded it.
Who
Boy, that's a
seconded?
memory. Doug?
Doug, okay.
Yeah.
Any other corrections or additions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have one appearance that I know of. Catherine Punwar would like to speak about the vote to purchase tire deflation devices. This is actually, just to clarify, a vote to approve the policy to use them. We have already purchased them. So,
Sorry, I had that
Like-
clarification after I submitted.
and if you'd like to state your address already as well.
I will. Thank you and good evening. My name is Catherine Punwar and I live at 4811 Reagan Terrace in Monona. And I would like to begin by thanking Mayor O'Connor and all of the alders for your time and dedication to serve the community of Monona, which has been my home for 31 years. I asked to speak this evening to request a delay in the vote for the police department's implementation of tire deflation devices. I truly appreciate that the council has already put in place very forward-thinking practices that will positively impact the police department and our community at large. The first of those is the 8 Can't Wait initiatives, one of which is to require de-escalation in police practices. And yet I believe that tire deflation devices are considered an escalation tool. 2, the council recently hired Nehemiah to review our police training and to assemble a committee of people of color who deserve to share their insights on this matter. And 3, the Riesling Group has also been hired to review our policies. It would seem proper to make a decision about implementing tire deflation devices once these initiatives and committees have completed their reviews and their findings have been shared. In the last council meeting, even after deeper questioning by Alder Moore, it seemed yet unclear to me the circumstances that would warrant police pursuit and perhaps eventually the use of tire deflation devices. In a recent interview that I saw, Calvin Garrett made it very clear that pursuit of a vehicle should only be used when the community or officers were in imminent danger, like an active shooter or someone who published a manifesto on social media and is driving toward a large event with the intent of killing many people. I did not hear that definitive criteria from our department in the last council meeting. So I have a few questions whose answers, or a few questions for the alders and for the council to think about, whose answers with the assistance of Nehemiah and the Riesling Group could be a helpful guide to future decisions about tire deflation devices. 1, what clear policies do we currently have in place regarding pursuit? And at what point would tire deflation devices be implemented? 2, what equity and diversity training is currently in place to examine how pursuit of a vehicle and or use of tire deflation devices may be racially biased? 3, since tire deflation devices are considered an escalating device, how does that fit in with the push for de-escalation policies? And 4, are tire deflation devices an essential tool or a hazardous one in our urban community? If essential, do we currently have the policies and parameters in place to assure the highest levels of safety? I believe that until the police department and council have responses from Nehemiah and the Riesling Group on these questions, that it's important to wait to vote on the implementation of tire deflation devices. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Brian, have we received any other requests to speak?
Not that I'm aware of. No, let me just check here real quick. Yes, we received one from Miss Carew, Kelly Carew from 4905 Rothman Place, and I believe she is on the meeting as we speak.
Okay, I see you, Ms. Carew. Would you like to state your name and address, and would you like to, what would you like to speak about?
Yes, hi. My name is Kelty Crew. I'm at 4905 Rothman Place, and I'm also commenting about the tire deflation devices. Thank you, Kathy Panwar. I echo a lot of what you said, and thank you for your questions as well. This year has made the broader public aware of the pressures and dangers posed by our current system of policing in the United States. It's deadly and traumatizing for everyone involved. And thus, as we've just already discussed, a lot of wise minds have identified de-escalation as a key tool for keeping our communities safe. When it comes to high-speed chases, stop sticks fall into the category of an escalation tool, and their use poses more of a danger to our community than their absence. Police are fallible, and a number of misidentifications have already occurred in the Madison area, which could have had deadly results for vehicle occupants had stop sticks been deployed. So since this SOP was issued on January 10, we as a community committed to the 8 Can't Wait campaign, which emphasizes de-escalation. And policy review and feedback is yet ongoing from hired consultants and community stakeholders. So please don't go back on our commitment to de-escalation and don't adopt the measure or implement the tire deflation devices. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Brian?
None that I can see.
None then? Okay. All right, there is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda. We have one item under unfinished business, 1A, consideration of resolution 20-8-2427, adopting police standard operating procedure SOP 2020-1 stop sticks put forth by the Public Safety Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Wally, are you going to introduce this or speak about it again?
Sure. I also have Sergeant Ryan Lasby, who's our emergency vehicle operations instructor, is also here with us. As I indicated last meeting, we are pretty much the only agency in Dane County that does not use stop sticks. And we are one of the probably top spots in Dane County to use stop sticks. Basically, what the stop stick does is it deflates the tires when the vehicle is driven over the stop stick, and it stops the vehicle from being a high-speed pursuit, which we have high speeds pretty much multiple times a day in Monona that travel through our city on the Beltline, which we are responsible for. We just had a vehicle stolen from Woody Lane early Sunday morning that's been used in a Dane County crime spree just in the last 24 hours, they were chasing that car around all last night, where they were driving down the belt line, throwing stolen property out the windows, going 100 miles an hour. When they finally got to a point where they could use the stop stick, the vehicle was eventually out of the area and disappeared. A lot of these vehicles that are being stolen, when I first got to Monona, Madison Police Department did not put out a daily hot sheet. Now they're putting out a daily hot sheet. These are the cars that are freshly stolen. When they first started doing this, we'd have 5 or 6. Right now, I think we have like 2.5 pages. There's about 30 stolen vehicles in the Madison metropolitan area. This is the only tool we really have. We can't use deadly force. We can't ram these cars. We can't run them off the road. About the only tool you have available to you is to use the stop stick to deflate the tires to stop the vehicle from being a high-speed process. So I have to differ with an opinion here. I look at the stop stick as a de-escalation device, not an escalation device. If it was an escalation device, we'd be setting up roadblocks and actively pursuing these cars. By deflating their tires, it reduces the risk to the general community countywide. At the last meeting, there was a request that the vehicle pursuit policy be presented. So that was in your packet. This was recently updated in February of 2020. It talks about officers being in pursuit, what would justify them being in pursuit. It has definitions of what a pursuit would be, when they could initiate a pursuit. The most common language to use would be violent felony. Violent felony that involves an actual or threatened attack on a person or persons that involve the use of force or threatened use of force. Just going through this, what we did is we cleaned up, if it's on page 60 of your packet, page 4 of the pursuit policy, and we listed when vehicle pursuits are justified when the initiating officer knows or has probable cause to believe. And I'll read through these. A, the occupants have committed, is committing, or is about to commit a violent felony, such as an armed robbery, recklessly endangering safety, or other crimes against a person in which violence is an element of the felony offense. B, a specific vehicle was used in or taken during the attempt or commission of a violent felony, such as an armed robbery, recklessly endangering safety, and other crimes against a person in which violence is an element to the felony offense. Or C, the vehicle or occupant present a clear and immediate threat to the safety of others, and therefore the necessity of immediate apprehension outweighs the level of danger created by the vehicle pursuit, such as a misdemeanor shots fired incident in which a specific vehicle is described as being involved. D, the occupants of the vehicle are engaged in drug dealing proximate in time to the initiation of the vehicle pursuit. E, the necessity of immediate apprehension outweighs the level of danger created by the vehicle pursuit, as in the case of the vehicle engaging in reckless driving. However, fleeing at high speeds and or reckless manner alone does not justify continuing a pursuit, particularly if innocent third parties are put to risk. And finally, F, a refusal to stop pursuit. So as previously defined within this general order, it may be initiated and maintained for a lesser offense than described above. However, once the refusal to stop pursuit becomes a fleeing eluding pursuit, justification for the pursuit must meet the criteria for the fleeing eluding pursuit. So we have those steps to clear in the officer's mind when they can chase someone or pursue someone. That last one, the refusal to stop pursuit, those are the ones where you're trying to stop a car, they're obeying, they've committed an offense such as speeding. Maybe they're going down Monona Drive. The officer gets up behind them and they just don't stop. They stop at the red light. They turn on their turn signal. They go down Broadway, and now they're obeying all the traffic laws, but they're not stopping. So this gives the officers permission to continue to follow that car with their lights and siren on in an attempt to get them to pull over. At some point, if the person is driving recklessly and it becomes unacceptable based on the type of offense. Like if it's just a speeding ticket and the person starts driving really crazy, then the officer would have to terminate that pursuit. So going on in the policy, there's standards as to what is acceptable and unacceptable as far as continuing in a pursuit, and it would be weather, road condition, population, speeds, ability of the officer, condition of the vehicles, what was the initial crime, the necessity of the pursuit, nature of the area, obviously if it's a school zone or something like that. Do we have the vehicle's registration number? Have they checked to make sure that that plate comes back to a genuine address so that they can track it down? Then there's a whole list of when a pursuit would be terminated. And it says at any time an OIC orders termination, it could be a junior officer working with someone else who's caught up in the event, and they could say, terminate the pursuit. So it doesn't have to be an officer in charge, it could be anyone. If the reason for the pursuit doesn't meet the criteria, when the vehicle gets too far away, when the vehicle's location's unknown, when there's equipment malfunctions, if someone's injured, you have to stop to aid them. If the subject's identity is established, if traffic gets too heavy, if the pursuing officer knows the vehicle's being operated by a juvenile who's acting in an unsafe manner, like my dog behind me right now, if the vehicle starts driving in such a reckless manner or speed that innocent third parties are put at risk. And we review video on these pursuits when they do happen. And believe me, officers are counseled when they do things that they shouldn't. The guidelines for once they do terminate the pursuit, the officer has to slow down to the speed limit, turn off their lights and siren. When it's safe, they have to come to a complete stop. They have to advise dispatch that the pursuit is terminated, but they have to let the video continue to run. And then at that point, they can continue on the last known path following traffic, but they have to maintain the speed limit, and just to check and see if the car crashed or if there's evidence down the road. And it goes into responsibilities of the officers, OICs, dispatch. It talks about the different intervention options. And that's very similar to what we have in use of force too, like just officer's presence, officer in uniform. Well, in this case, the vehicle's presence. Dialogue, that's turning on your lights and siren, trying to get the vehicle to stop. Control, how many vehicles are involved, if road spikes would be authorized, if channelization, that's where you're trying to guide the vehicle, like to an off ramp or to one lane. Then it starts getting more elevated after that, and that would be like a roadblock with escape route, pinning a vehicle. We don't really, pinning a vehicle, it's not something we would do in a pursuit, but we use that technique a lot, like at Walmart. We'll get a stolen vehicle in the parking lot at Walmart, and we know people are coming back to the vehicle. So we'll just have the squads pull up and just block it in, sort of pin it in place so it can't go anywhere. And then you get into the deadly force aspect of things, and that would be where and it would have to be very serious to use deadly force. That would be where ramming, roadblock with no escape, and finally shooting and using lethal force. That's the final thing in that. And then in the actual pursuit policy on page 64 of your handout, page 8 of the policy, it talks about using road spikes or stop sticks. It goes on, talks about deadly force, use of firearms, and pursuit review. So that's a real quick review of our pursuit policy. And this is going to be coming up before public safety next week. It's just that we didn't get it there because the council meeting came before the public safety meeting. A lot of these vehicles that are stolen are involved in a lot of these weapons offenses. I'm sure you follow the news in Madison that they had so many shots fired call in July. Well, we had 4 weapons offenses in July, which is really high for us. That's the most we've probably had in the last year or so. We had shots fired at Falcon Circle, where there was an 87-year-old lady in the back of her house, and someone just opened up on the front of her house with 5 different calibers, .223, 40, 45, 9mm, .380. They did a lot of damage. We're assuming that they had the wrong house. We hope they had the wrong house. We had one on Dean Avenue where someone shot out the windows of a house right at Dean and Winnequa. We had the guy who had a dispute with one of his drug dealing buddies at the American. The guy took a shot at him, and there's a fourth one in July. I don't have the data as far as where that is, but that's what's happening with a lot of these stolen vehicles. And the stop sticks are really the only tool we have to try to slow them down, to try to apprehend them, to put a stop to some of this nonsense. So that's my summary.
Sergeant Losby, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Pretty much just reiterating what the chief said. That stolen auto, the victim vehicle from Monona, the havoc that vehicle caused in Dane County was so much, and it's so extreme that Madison Police Department actually requested if that Monona car is found to immediately stop stick it. That crew was going all over the greater Madison area, stealing other vehicles, stealing property, throwing property out onto the sides of the road all over the place, just creating a lot of property crimes. That particular one didn't include gun violence, but a lot of these have been lately. I mean, we just lost an 11-year-old girl, and you can believe that it's related to the stolen auto epidemic and the associated problems with what these guys are doing. That will come out more in detail soon. We're in a profession that's just being attacked right now, but there's a public outcry right now for this exact problem. And again, I'd like to reiterate that this is actually a de-escalation tool. You're taking the high speed, the most dangerous element of a pursuit or a vehicle that, even with us not behind it, is just racing up and down the belt line in 51, doing the circuit in these stolen cars, and they're endangering every single person out there on the roads. So we are taking that high speed out. There was a pursuit that went through Monona. Dane County spiked it this weekend, and we're able to get that car stopped without anybody hurt. And that person, as a deterrent, got arrested for it. Extreme speeds, and reduced it down to circling in a block, almost speed limit speeds because of the lack of tires. And we were able to get that person stopped. And it took another agency to spike that car in Monona to do that. Our department for, I'd say the last couple of years, up until recently, I'm sure you've seen it in the news and in the media, we're on the forefront of fighting this problem. And we're kind of the department known for that. And it was working so well that we had pursuits that would purposely in Dane County go around Monona. They didn't want to come through Monona because we were regularly catching them. And that's what we want. We don't want these to come through our city. And we're out there trying to stop this problem and risk our lives. And yes, the use of this tool is a risk for us, but it's such a big problem, and pretty passionate about this topic. That's all. Thank you.
I have one question, and then alders can ask their questions. When I know that other police departments have used stop sticks in Monona, correct? Do they have to have our permission to do that? Primarily on the Beltline. Do they have to ask us before they do that, or?
No.
They can just be dry. If they're chasing someone coming through Monona, they could use them.
Any agency can, if they have approval on their own for a pursuit, any agency can use sticks.
Even if they're in
another jurisdiction, unless we, for example, say, yeah, no, you can't do that here.
But would they necessarily be asking us?
For that kind of scenario, not usually, no.
Okay, let me weigh in on that a little bit. Okay, So
Okay.
if it was the state patrol or the Dane County, they have countywide jurisdiction, statewide jurisdiction. They don't have to ask us to do anything on the Beltline. If it was like the town of Madison or something like that, and they wanted to deploy them in Monona, we would have to ask them for mutual aid because it's in our jurisdiction.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that, I mean, if they're in a chase, they don't have to ask to come into Monona. They just continue. That's pretty standard. What we have actually done is we've actually asked for mutual aid from the town to come out to Walmart on several occasions because we wanted them to deploy their stop sticks in the underground parking because we had stolen vehicles down there that we know that we're going to flee. I mean, we've talked about this before. We had, these kids, they get in the cars, they tried to run over one of our officers, they rammed it into a pole, and next thing you know, now you got a high-speed pursuit. If we had the sticks, we could have just put them in front of their tires and gone upstairs to try to track them down. And if they had left, they would have flattened their tires and there would not have been a pursuit. So yes and no. Sometimes if like there was the claim from the town, there was a chase going west on the Beltline, maybe the end of last year, where there was some confusion and our officers were involved in a pursuit of a stolen vehicle. The town officer spiked the wrong car. We did not ask him for mutual aid, so we never asked him to do that. He did it on his own. So the town ended up paying for the tires on that car that they spiked. If it had been us that asked for mutual aid, then we would have been responsible for those tires, but that was not the case. So mutual aid is kind of one of those things where you keep reminding the officers about it because it puts us on the onus to pay any damages or be responsible for anybody's injuries if something like that were to happen.
Okay, Alder Groupie.
I just have a few questions about the SOP. So under vehicle pursuits are justified when you mentioned D, the occupants of the vehicle are engaged in drug dealing proximate in time to the initiation of the vehicle pursuit. I'm just wondering a couple of things about that specific point. One of which is what constitutes proximal time, and also if there's any differentiation between different drug crimes for the use of stop sticks against a suspected drug dealer. Then I just have one other comment in section D, section C, when it talks about guidelines for termination, one of the final two bullet points says, if the pursuing police officers know that the fleeing vehicle is being operated by a juvenile who is driving in such an unsafe manner that it is obvious the juvenile does not have the maturity to deal with the danger involved, the pursuit should be terminated. And my question is, from what I understand from the majority of our police calls for stolen vehicles, these are mostly juveniles and minors, 14, 15 years old. And so I'm just wondering, and I know you probably don't have statistical information off the top of your head, but I would think that the majority of these stolen vehicle incidents would preclude you from using the stop sticks based on the ages of the, respondents in the fleeing vehicle. So just some clarification on those points I think would be useful.
I'll let Ryan answer the drug question
Sure.
because you're our drug expert.
So, yeah, one of the topics is the drug activity and approximate time, and what is approximate time. Our rule is, as long as you suspect drug or narcotics activity with that vehicle and you keep eyes on it the entire time, and then you go effect contact or a stop on that vehicle and it takes off, that would be proximate time. Now, could it last a couple hours? Sure, but they usually don't. Usually narcotics activity, open air transactions are usually within a couple of minutes, and that's when contact is appropriate for that. As far as type of drug, we usually don't know what type of narcotics unless we actually get a call from a person who knows what it is. I think I know where you're going with that. If it's marijuana, we're not going to pursue that vehicle. So yeah, I could see the type of drug coming into play, but we almost never know what type of narcotics that is. Well, you want the second one covered too?
Yeah, once you start, I mean, a lot of times, these are happening at night. Unless there's some intelligence on the car actually coming into our jurisdiction, we don't know how old the person is. We don't know who's driving it. We just know there's a car coming that's reported stolen. It's hard, at some point it was 12, 13, and 14-year-old kids a couple of years ago, but now these same kids are, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Basically the same crew, but we just don't know. I mean, if we did know that it's a juvenile and for sure, and they're driving totally out of control and reckless, according to this policy, we'd have to terminate the pursuit.
I basically say the same thing. We don't know who's driving. Yes, it used to be that most of them were under the age of 17, which is our line for adulthood in crimes, but not anymore. And the growing trend is we're over 17 years old now, and I think you're going to see that grow even bigger. But it's back to, we just don't know. If we did, we probably have the person identified, and we wouldn't be pursuing that person anyway. So.
Anyone else? I'll just go for it.
Almost got you, Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love us to focus a little more on prevention. I think the car that was stolen the other night in Monona, I heard the resident, she admitted she forgot her fob in the car. And so if we really, and I know the police department has done the PSAs before on, locking your property. It's so important because the majority of these cars that have been stolen, from what I've heard, is keys are found in the car and the cars are unlocked. And I made a poster maybe a week or two ago and sent that over to Chief Ostrenga's way. And it's a campaign, if you love it, lock it. Talking about cars, homes, and bikes. If we have to realize we live in an urban area and people are out there at night looking for these opportunities. And it's our duty to prevent those opportunities from laying there waiting for them. So I would love to see us work on a little more prevention efforts. I think for me, the timing of this ask is odd. I know we've bought these, it sounds like maybe last year, so we've had them around for a long time. And here we're in the process of, engaging with Nehemiah and the Riesling group. And, why can we just wait a few more months and see what they say? We've just kind of are in the process of making this commitment to 8 Can't Wait. And we've made a commitment to people that we're trying to make change for the better for everyone in our community. So can we just push the pause button for just a couple more months, and my issue, I realize that stop sticks sound like a useful tool on rare occasions. So, I think I'm not debating that. For me, it's the timing of this ask is a little bit different for me.
Anyone else? Alder Wood and then Alder Groupie. Alder Wood, I'm sorry.
Yep, I had myself muted. So I have a couple of questions for either Ryan or Wally. Is a pursuit warranted for a stolen vehicle?
I can answer that. No. A pursuit alone on a stolen, well, let me reverse that. A stolen vehicle is not reason enough for a pursuit. You need that danger to the public factor. So reckless driving before you initiate a pursuit, not after. We talked about the narcotics. They either committed a violent felony or are about to. That one's rare, but if we had knowledge that they're about to commit a violent felony, then we could. Threat to safety or others. Anything where the public is at risk is the reason for the pursuit, not just because it's a stolen vehicle and it didn't stop for us. And we have that happen to us all the time.
Okay. Would an OWI qualify as for a pursuit? A suspected OWI?
It could, but you need that definite recklessness, and that it has to be before you initiate your pursuit. You know, everybody's seen a drunk driver on the road and they're swerving in the lanes, but if they're not at that time of observation by the officer, if they're not truly endangering somebody, we can't pursue that person.
Those kind of fall into that failure to stop type call where, you know, you might have someone commit a violation, you go to stop them and then all of a sudden they don't stop. So that's where, you know, I've experienced that before, where you get a drunk driver and you just kind of lay back and you're trying to keep traffic away from them once they start swerving all over the place. So it's not really a high-speed pursuit many times, but that's why we have that failure to stop in there. Just one point that sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Doug, but I know Christy came up with the love it or lock it thing, and I have that. We just haven't been able to do that. I'm sorry, Molly. Let me just make this one point. Like this car that was stolen Sunday morning, an officer showed me on his phone today. It was a Ring camera. It showed the stolen car on the street with another individual in the driveway with a rock in his hand, busting out a window of another car they were going to break into. So even though the car that was stolen had the keys in it, just because you don't have the keys in it, they're out there breaking windows. And once they break into the car and get in the car, that's when they hit the garage door opener and they basically have whatever you have if your house isn't locked up. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you guys off, but I wanted to get that out there.
Doug, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I had one more question, and then I guess a couple comments. Are these safe for the officers to deploy?
Everything we do as police officers has some danger associated with it. It's dangerous business. It is safe if they follow the instructions, follow their training, and don't deviate from that. There are horror stories. There was one where the Dane County deputy got hit by a kid in a stolen car out east of Sun Prairie, maybe 6-7 years ago. But he was not in the right position. So if you have to have a safe place to deploy it from, and you have to be aware by communicating with the people that are involved in the chases, where you are, when you're going to do it. You just have to follow instructions.
Okay. Well, I'll hold my comments until everybody's done with questions.
Okay, Alder Groupie, did you have something?
Yeah, so I just wanted to sort of in tandem with Alder Wood's question about the stolen vehicles being rationale for a pursuit in themselves. The second whereas in the resolution for the stop stick says, whereas a majority of these vehicles are stolen and are involved in other serious criminal activity. I had made a note about that just because what we're talking about with, we're saying this is mostly to address this rash of stolen vehicles. And I just wonder if we have the statistical information again to back up that the majority of these pursuits, stop sticks would be needed for these pursuits based on the fact that the vehicles are stolen and then also somehow related to other serious criminal activity. And again, it sounds like, your impression is that like that's the majority, but I just want to make sure that we're not stating this in the resolution and it's not supported by policy meaning we wouldn't pursue a vehicle that was just stolen with no other related criminal activity. But then also to say that the majority of these vehicles that we would use these against are stolen and the driver has been involved in serious criminal activity. I just want to make sure that that is true. And we have the, you know, the information and the history to back that up appropriately if we're going to include it in the resolution.
Would you be happy changing the language to saying whereas a number rather than a majority?
Well, as long as, I think we need to be clear somehow, if the answer is no, just a stolen vehicle does not warrant a pursuit, I think it needs to be clear that if in the incident, a stolen vehicle also has a driver or occupant who is known to have engaged in serious criminal activity, I just think we need to be clear on these points so that policy is then followed clearly if we decide to pursue the stop sticks with our vote.
I agree with that.
Arden?
So can Wally answer that question? Is that true?
Okay, so your question is, based on the resolution, a majority of these vehicles are stolen and are involved in other serious criminal activity. I would have to say yes. Ryan, you shake your head yes.
Totally agree.
That's what this is all about. I mean, we have an incident that's sort of in limbo right now, where DCI is helping us with an investigation from June, where a vehicle that was involved in a shots fired case in Madison ended up in Monona. It was initially spotted, and our initial information right after it crashed going 100 miles an hour west on Femright was that it was potentially a stolen vehicle, because the vehicle owner mysteriously showed up at the scene of the crash like within a half hour. So, you know, it turned out it wasn't, but that car was involved in a shots fired case. And I mean, it's a huge problem. And these weren't 12 and 13-year-old kids involved in it either. So I would have to say the way that's worded is correct in my mind.
Anyone else? Alderwood.
Just a couple of comments. First, I don't think that this is either that if we approve this policy and the use of stop sticks, that would take away from our commitment to de-escalation, because I mean, even with the de-escalation policy, we're not saying we would never resort to lethal force or other force less than that. And I do think this has the potential to end pursuits more peacefully than they might otherwise be. I have a couple of concerns about the pursuit policy, that allowing pursuits to take place because of suspected drug dealing, I would not support that under any circumstances. I know we're not approving the pursuit policy tonight, but I think that's one that public safety is taking up at their next meeting. And so I guess I'm inclined to wait at least until public safety has had a chance to review these the pertinent policies here. And I guess I'm a little concerned that to make sure that we actually, if we have these devices, that we actually follow the policies. And not to pick on you, Wally, but I mean, you said earlier that that we could deploy them at Walmart in front of a stolen vehicle because we know they're going to flee, but that wouldn't be appropriate under the policy as far as I can tell. So it might not, it might be a good idea. I don't know, but it doesn't fit the policy as far as I can tell. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Anyone else? Alder Kur.
I would just say that our action tonight, I think, doesn't negate the work that we're doing with Nehemiah or with the Rising Group. I think that we hopefully will be reviewing across the board our policies. So if we choose to accept this now, it doesn't mean that we've set it in stone and that we can't make changes. I think that this is it's a fluid situation, but I also want to give our officers tools. I envision this as a tool that they can use if necessary. I think that our officers have sufficient training, and I think they continue to have training on these things. And I believe that they should be able to have access to the tools that they need. I would hate for us to have to rely on other jurisdictions to use these within Monona. I'd rather see our officers use it because I know our officers care about the people that are in Monona and use their head and would use these in a situation that would be warranted. So I think I would support this.
Anyone else?
Just,
Alder
yeah,
Alder Thomas and then Alder Moore.
yeah, I support what Alder Kur says, and the point is that if our officers use them, first of all, it protects our officers and our community. But if our officers use them, they are using our policies, and we know they are trained to do it. They are being used in this community, and I would prefer to see our officers use them if possible.
Alder Moore.
You're on mute.
I'm unmuting. Thank you, Kathy. I was unmuting. Thank you. I would, a couple of things. One is, I'm wondering, Chief, or others, if you might respond to the questions that were raised. First of all, I want to thank the individuals that came this evening to speak. Kelty and Kathy, really appreciate you being here. And the community concern, as always, we love an engaged community. And second, I'm wondering, Chief, if you could speak. I know you spoke to the issue of de-escalation and whether it's a de-escalation versus an escalation tool. But it seems to me in the beginning of the meeting that there were 3 or 4 questions that Kathy Punwar offered or asked, and I'm wondering if we've addressed those yet. And I'd like to see, to the extent that you can, if we might address those questions as directly as we could. And second, I would say that while I appreciate the resident concerns, and I share some concern around the policy that the Public Safety Committee will be reviewing in the near future, I too believe that this appears to be a very valuable tool, and that our officers are trained sufficiently and will continue to be trained in a manner that they're deployed overall. So I don't see the tool as the issue as much as how the tool is applied, which is something that we can continue to address through policy, starting with the Public Safety Committee meeting next week.
Anyone else? Or Wally, did you want to address Alder Moore's questions? Was your first question was, is this considered de-escalation? Was that, Nancy, is that correct?
That was one question, and that was already addressed. That was one question of Kathy Punwar's, but I believe she had 3 or 4 others, and I'm afraid I didn't write them down fast enough to have them all. But I'm hopeful that perhaps somebody else did, or if not, since Kathy is still with us, if we might be able to address those questions directly, since she was thoughtful enough to provide those questions to us.
Did anyone get those questions?
One of those was the pursuit policy. And like Alderwood mentioned, it seems like it maybe needs a little cleaning up.
And you'll be discussing that next week, is that correct? At the next public safety meeting? The pursuit policy, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and what were do you remember the other ones? Or Kathy Punmar, if you'd like to chime in here and tell us your other questions, repeat your questions.
The one was what equity and diversity training is currently in place to examine how pursuit of a vehicle or use of tire deflation devices may be racially biased. And then the one that wasn't recently mentioned is, are the tire deflation devices an essential tool or a hazardous one in our urban community? And if it's essential, do we currently have the policies and parameters in place to assure the highest levels of safety?
Okay. So, Chief, would you like to?
Yeah, I don't have records on stop stick use for equity and diversity, racial bias stats. I just don't have that. I don't know. Is it essential? I think we are the only ones in the county that pretty much don't have them, and we are probably the prime agency in the county that could use them. So yes, I would say they are essential.
Can you, I guess I would just ask in terms of the diversity question, can you usually tell who it is you're chasing? Is it, you know, if it's a person of color or sometimes you've been told, I assume? Is that what you're thinking of, Kathy, along those lines, Kathy, or I'm?
Yeah, I would say in cases like that, you really don't know unless it's a long drawn out thing where people have had an opportunity to see inside the car, or if it originated and there were witnesses that maybe provided that information to someone. That's the only time we would know. But the officers, when a car goes by at 100 miles an hour, they have no idea who's operating the vehicle or who's in it.
Alder, go for it. Really glad you have that on the screen, Brian.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Can I clarify that the Public Safety Committee has not yet had a chance to review the policies? Is that correct?
The stop sticks policy?
Yeah.
They have, haven't they?
Yeah, we recommended it.
Yeah, but I thought that they did that without having the policy presented to them in place.
Yeah, we got the policy.
Okay. The meeting I went to, they were approved and the policy had not been written yet.
Okay, the public safety reviewed the stop stick standard operating procedure. They did not review the pursuit policy.
Okay.
That's going to be
We're talking two different policies, is that?
two different things.
And the pursuit policy is what they're reviewing next week.
So
They will see it next week, along with 3 use of force general orders too. We're still working on that.
But they have reviewed and approved the stop stick policy.
Yes, they did.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? No? Okay. Alder Moore, are you still there to vote?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess we'll call the question. Or Alder Wood, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just want to let you know, I'm going to move to table this in a moment, but I want to give anybody a chance to speak before I do that, because that's a non-debatable motion. So, and it looks like Molly wants.
Alder Groupie?
I was planning on abstaining from this vote. I just think given the questions that have been raised by the community, and also given the fact that we are embarking on this equity work and exploration of our policies and practice by outside agencies, I would prefer to wait. So I would support a motion to table. All of this being said, I so respect and appreciate both Chief Estrenga and Sergeant Losby's willingness to come and share with us today. the hard work that they do. This is very complicated for me, which is why I wouldn't feel comfortable giving a yay or nay tonight, because I don't want to definitively preclude the use of these devices if they are in fact the appropriate essential tools that you're describing to us. And obviously your experience means more than mine as a resident and just a private citizen. But I do think it would be important to discuss these issues with these outside agencies before we make a decision.
Alder Thomas.
If we didn't have all of these bad things going on now, I would say we could table it. But we have kept this tool away from our officers for a long time, and we have called in other agencies and asked them to do the same thing. I have talked to police departments in Sun Prairie, I'm trying to think, but 2 or 3, and they have had these since 2011. They've had them for 9 or 10 years. They find them essential. And we're not going to change our pursuit policy. I mean, that's not going to change over the next week till we deal with it. And what there is about this that people find troublesome or unwilling to give this tool to our police when other departments, virtually everyone else in Dane County has it. I don't understand it. There is nothing about this that has anything to do with racial profiling. I mean, I understand the concerns about people and racial profiling, but this isn't about that. This is about keeping our community safe. And why we would delay it, I just don't know what is to be gained by that.
Alder Groforth, then Alder Wood, then Alder Grouping.
I just wanted to mention that to Alder Thomas, for me, it's a timing issue. And I was also going to plan on abstaining on this one, just because we're embarking on this work. I would like to see how this work evolves and what the recommendations come from the professionals at the Rising Group and Nehemiah on this measure. And I think also, I know I saw some of the information from those police departments you had reached out to, Alder Thomas, and I believe one was Sun Prairie and I believe the other was Stoughton. And those were both rural districts. And so they're just, vastly different than what we are, our situation here.
Alder Wood.
So I would like to delay it until public safety has a chance to review the pursuit policies, since they're only basically authorized to be used in a pursuit. And since that's happening fairly imminently, I would rather wait until that's done. I don't think we need to wait, and certainly not until the Nehemiah work is done. I mean, that's going to be, a year-long process and probably longer. But yeah, so.
I also don't think Nehemiah is necessarily going to be looking at all of our policies, are they? They're going to be looking at training.
No, but they're going to look at training.
Right. And is the Rising Group going to be looking at the stop stick policy? Do we know?
No.
I know they're using the use of force policies. So would this be included in that?
I would have to confer with them about that.
Well, the thing is, there is no stop stick policy. There's a stop stick operating procedure, and there's a pursuit policy.
This is a policy that we're voting.
That is the policy.
This is it. This is the policy we're voting on tonight.
And the Public Safety Committee reviewed the stop stick policy.
Right. And they approved it. Yep. Alder Groupie.
I just wanted to offer that my concerns aren't necessarily related to racial bias or inequity. I know that concern was raised by some residents. I think it's more along the lines of just the general exploration of use of force policies and exploration of different de-escalation tools and practices generally about our police department. So I just want to clarify that that's not specifically the reason why I hesitate now. And again, to me, it's very complicated, which is why I can't clearly say, no, I don't think we need this. We've been given some very compelling testimony by Sergeant Losby and Chief Estrenga tonight. But it just, to me, it keeps referencing that kid who did this and these kids who do that and kids who are stealing vehicles. And I just, I think we need to make sure the policy is clear about the juvenile piece. And, I just think the policy needs to be clear and some of these questions need to be addressed before I would feel comfortable approving this policy and the use of these tools. So that's really just, I wanted to offer that clarifying comment in response to Alder Thomas's argument. So,
Anyone else?
Okay, then
Alder
I will move the table.
And just,
I'm
second,
sorry.
Madam Mayor, just a point of information, this would actually be a motion to postpone to a certain time.
Okay, so does Alderwood need to specify the time?
Yeah, I think you'd spelled out in your previous comments that you wanted to wait until after the conclusion of the Public Safety Committee meeting. Is that correct?
Right.
So the next council meeting?
I mean, that would be done before the next meeting. If it's not, we could just table it again if we were so inclined.
Alder Thomas, did you have a piece of information about that?
Well, just a comment. If public safety does it at the next meeting, then we would have the first reading at the next council meeting, but we wouldn't act on it.
For the pursuit policy, you
For the
mean?
pursuit policy. Therefore, you wouldn't know at the next meeting how the pursuit policy, whether that was approved. So if you were going to delay it until then, wouldn't you want to wait until after the pursuit policy was approved? Or does it doesn't matter to me, because
Yeah, okay, then I will revise that. I'll say I'll move to postpone decision on this until a pursuit policy has been approved by the council.
I'll second.
Yeah, we could take it up at the same meeting that the pursuit.
That's what I was thinking. We could put the pursuit policy first on the,
Right.
well, yeah, first on the agenda. So did you say this is not debatable, Doug?
it is not.
Okay.
Right.
So Alder Groupie has seconded. All in favor of tabling until, I think that would be September 21st. Say aye.
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 So is that 3 people? Did Jennifer Aldercourt, did you say aye?
I said aye.
And Alder Moore, you didn't? Okay, and all opposed?
Hey,
I'm sorry, Alder Schilling or Alder Goforth, I did not hear you.
I said aye.
You said aye, okay. And I'm not sure what Alder Moore said, but she said aye. So the I passed, so we will table it until the 21st of September. All right. We will now move on to new business. Item 2A, consideration of resolution 20-8-2430, amending the 2020 capital budget for the 2020 library rooftop unit replacement and HVAC controls upgrades project put forth by the Public Works Project Manager.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, so we have a budget surplus in our capital budget for the library rooftop HVAC and civic campus HVAC controls upgrades project this year. Bids came in at about $124,700. We had budgeted just north of $200,000 for the project. That budget surplus is being requested to be reallocated to other HVAC related projects, which include duct cleaning at the City Hall building, which is desperately needed. As far as we know, outside of some of the ductwork in the fire department, none of the rest of the building has ever been cleaned. Typical commercial sized buildings like this get cleaned every 5 to 10 years. We're going on somewhere around almost 60 years. So that definitely should be done. That is is about $18,400 or $18,500. The city's public works garage is currently not up to code in terms of its ventilation system. The ventilation system currently is operated manually, and as you may predict, most of the time that's not operated at all because of that fact. So we are hoping to put in automated ventilation system sensors that will turn the ventilation system in the public works garage on when it's has too much carbon monoxide or nitrates in the air. This is typical. It is to code, it will be if approved. And that's just to help with the safety and well-being of our employees and staff down there at the Public Works Garage. At a minimum, most of the time, or to code actually, the ventilation system should run 5 hours a day. Right now, it's essentially not running at all. So we want to get that fixed in both the main garage bay, the mechanics shop, and the workshop. So 3 different sets of sensors, all hooked to 3 different sets of ventilation systems. I believe the work for that is 7,400. Yes, 7,408. And then the furnace at the Public Works Garage and the AC unit at the Public Works Garage are both very out of date. We gain efficiency and comfort and just overall reliability by upgrading them. And currently, the AC unit actually broke down and stopped working just recently. So perfect timing to get it fixed. We have it in for an emergency replacement this week, so they are coming in to repair it. However, if this goes through, I'd like to allocate this budget so that we reserve some of our administrators' building improvements or building maintenance budget for other unforeseen items that may occur or arise the rest of the year, which, knock on wood, nothing will, but that's not typically how it happens with 60-plus-year-old buildings. So I'll take any questions.
Alder Coor and then Alder Wood.
So am I hearing you correctly that the AC unit at the Public Works Garage is broken and we're having somebody come in to fix it? Would it be helpful if we took this out of order so that you'd be able to just move forward with purchasing a new one?
Yes. I mean, technically we have ordered the new unit to come in. They will be replacing it this week because it's essential to have air conditioning in that facility. But it would be nice that when the final invoice came in, that I had the approval of the council to allocate the HVAC capital funds as opposed to the administrator's building maintenance funds.
So that's what you're going to pay for it. That's what you're planning on paying for it with right now?
Right now, yes.
And then we would backfill, assuming that the capital amendment was approved.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
Jennifer, did you have anything else? Alder Wood?
No, that was my question. If there was any reason not to approve this tonight, and it doesn't sound like there is, so I'll move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Second,
Discussion, Alder Moore, did you have something?
you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I got it off. There's always a little delay. Brad, can you tell, are any of these 3 items, I mean, it seems to me that several of them at least are items that frankly we should have known about. I mean, the duct cleaning, as you said, it's pretty standard procedure to clean it on a regular basis. And the fact that the Public Works Garage hasn't had ventilation and it's against code, it seems to me that's something that we should have known about. Are any of these items that have been presented previously in capital budgets that we delayed for some reason?
Not presented in capital budgets. The duct cleaning has been brought before the facilities committee in the past. I believe 2 years ago, we had allocated building improvements funds, or I'm sorry, building maintenance funds to do it, but we ran out. I believe that was kind of in the same year that the community center bathrooms projects happened.
Okay.
And we just didn't have, it's 18,000. It's a significant amount of money. So it really kind of takes up a lot of that building improvements or building maintenance fund. And so it would be, I mean, if we have the room, the surplus in this capital budget, it'd be nice to put it down as a capital item as opposed to an unforeseen building maintenance item, because it is something that we could plan for. So we've had it. It's been there. It's something that has been on my radar to do. Obviously, we're only starting with the City Hall building. I kind of wanted to see how the process goes forward, what the company is like, if they do a good job, if it's worth doing, that kind of thing, and then potentially propose it for the other facilities as well. So that has been on the docket. The Public Works garage, I'm not really sure how that's fallen through the hoops or through the holes. It's a building that doesn't have a lot to it in terms of HVAC because it's essentially a warehouse. However, it's never been on an HVAC maintenance schedule. So we are throwing that in 2021 on the HVAC RFP for maintenance. So the Public Works Garage, City Hall, Library, and Community Center will all be on a maintenance proposal and will all be checked routinely on an annual basis from here going forward.
Which
so that we don't have these kind of items fall through the cracks.
Doug, the other ones, or I mean, Brad, the other ones already are on a maintenance schedule, aren't they?
Yes, but they have to be, the maintenance schedule has to be updated because the systems are being updated. So next year is a perfect year to issue a new RFP.
So only Public Works does not have routine maintenance.
Right, and that's the way it's been for, well, as far as I know, it's for forever.
Okay.
So, does that answer your question, Alder Moore?
It does, Brad, and thank you. And I would just say, so I certainly would be supportive of this, and I fully appreciate how challenging our budget and budgeting is, but I also am keenly aware from having served in large campus environments previously and been involved at some level in facilities in those arenas, that the issue of deferred maintenance and kicking our maintenance down the road always comes back to bite you in the butt, if you will, because it always costs us much more in the long term when we let such things slide. So I appreciate it, you bring them forward and support this measure.
Anyone else? Alder, go for it.
Yeah, it was great seeing the savings through air temp services, and I was really excited about that. But I definitely understand the importance of air quality, especially at this time. But I just want to confirm that staff feels budgetarily that we will be okay approving this despite all of our budget shortfalls this year.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, because this is an item that was previously allocated for, and since we've seen some additional cost savings from the actual bidding of that, this would not have a larger impact on the budget than has already been budgeted for.
Well, and this is not spending all of our savings either from that bid. Alder Thomas?
This is capital and not operating, is it not?
Right.
Yes.
So it wouldn't affect the operating budget.
Correct. Anything else? Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor, so we will call the roll. All in favor, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Corr,
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Your daughter is really cute.
Thank you very much. She takes after her mother.
Good thing.
You're a smart man.
Good answer.
Okay, next up is a presentation by the Community Media Committee, put forth by the Community Media Committee. So I'm not sure how you plan to handle this. Is that something Will is going to do, or Alder Goforth?
Will is going to do that.
All right.
Knock it off, right, Will?
Can you hear me?
You can.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so let me share my screen here as I have a PowerPoint presentation. Oh, Brian, you might need to make me host here for a second. Okay, thanks. Okay, so I know that we have, it's been a long night, and I will try to stay focused and move along here. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of City Council. It's just going to be an overview of the department, a little history for fun, and talk about some of the challenges and opportunities. And of course, a big part that we'll talk about tonight is the City of Monona and the Monona Grove School District Partnership Agreement. So if we go back to the beginning for fun, and we look at the 1970s, that's when the Monona cable access television began, if you will. Bill Ziegler was a high school teacher, and Rosemary Lehman was the city cable coordinator. So this picture I found in the archives. Full disclosure, I'd like to think that is Bill Ziegler and Rosemary Lehman, but I have no clue who this is. But it looks good for presentation purposes, so I thought I'd share it. In 1973, we do know the partnership began because I have documentation that I found that shows that the document from February 20th, 1973, I'm going to move my document here, shows that if you look kind of right up here, you'll see it says Monona Grove School District Television Coordinator and the city cable administrator shall cooperate in all aspects of such and such. So we know that they did a lot of work in 1973 to get this going. And here's kind of a fun, if you will, history of some photos from back in the day. And if you want to visualize some of these people, there's Bill Ziegler right there. And this, I believe, is Rosemary Lehman. I know she's in there because I read it down here. I had to crop some of it off, so I'm assuming that's her and not her.
Yes.
So a little history there as we go forward. In 1999, because of the success of the club, we know that they built a studio inside the high school for the club, for the city-school partnership, because of the great successes that it was having. And then, of course, in 2014, we leap ahead a little bit, and we know that that's when we took basically, we just said it's time to get online, and we took a more aggressive stance to use YouTube and Facebook and all of those outlets. And then in 2015, that's when the radio station started. So you look at us now in 2020, we have a 50-year history, roughly, almost. So it was pretty eye-opening to go back to some of the archives and see what has been happening over the years. I had the privilege of talking to Bill Ziegler when I first started in 2014, and he was in Florida somewhere enjoying retirement. But I remember he said, when we started this partnership, it was very progressive for its time. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And it still is very progressive, because in the short 6 years I've been here, I've been approached by 3 different school districts, including a municipality. The school district of Belleville and the city of Belleville came to the high school to talk to me and the superintendent and the principal about the relationship. And Mary, were you there? I feel like you might have been.
That wasn't Belleville, though. That was Waupun, wasn't it? Either Waupun or Beaver Dam.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember what school district it was. I thought it was Belleville, so thank you for the correction there. But so they wanted to know what we were doing, how we were doing it, because they knew it was very successful. I've been approached by Oregon school districts because they're mainly renting out an area in the high school right now, and they're have an avenue for engaging students, but nothing like we have. And then just recently, before the pandemic, River Falls School District got a hold of me, and they wanted to come down and see what we were doing, and because it was because we were on their radar as doing some really great things. So it certainly was progressive in 1973, and it proves to still be now, as I don't know a city-school partnership like this anywhere in the state. I've done some research, and I can't find anything. So if we look at the partnership, we know that there's 5 main areas of this city-school partnership that is a contractual partnership. And one of the main ones is being an advisor to the AV Club at the high school and overseeing the morning announcements. It's guaranteeing some coverage of city events, school events, of course, the school board meetings, council and plan commission meetings. It talks about equipment and facilities and who's in charge of updating those equipments and facilities. And then, of course, AV support throughout the district at times and the city. So if we look at the AV Club advisor, if you will, really that's us. I say us because it at one time was 2 full-time employees, as we are currently hiring for the other full-time media position that we had lost in January. So we would oversee the club. That means club meetings, event supervision, as we tried to be hands-off but supervise the students as they use the equipment. And then just in the high school, letting the studio be a daily resource for the students to come in and work at study halls or just be there when they didn't have class or on lunch and be able to utilize the space. One thing I did notice that during the quarantine happened, the students took it upon themselves to kind of take over the announcements and do it themselves from their home. And they did a really phenomenal job. I was pretty proud of them because all I did was kind of help them get started, and that's all I really needed to do. So when we look at meetings and events for the school district and the community, for the school district, there is a number of events, right? We do football, basketball, choir, band, orchestra, of course, graduation, award ceremonies, announcements, all those things. When we go out to the community, of course, we try to connect with the community with the events that happen, obviously pre-pandemic, when we looked at the Winnequa Park concerts, National Night Out, 4th of July Festival, Community Festival, the parade, Fall Festival. So I think that connection to community is big. And up in the right corner there, Ryan is getting ready to be dunked, our library director. And of course, from time to time, we'll do some video work and some outreach for some city services. One thing that I think is important is our continuing coverage of plan commission meetings, school board meetings, and council meetings. I think that is a very good relationship, not only for the school, but for the city. These students, they get experience, but it's also, for many of them, it's their first job, so they're getting a lot of personal and professional growth. And it's extending that kind of learning environment outside the high school walls that I think the city can kind of tip their hat to. But it's also, what I don't have on here is kind of that commitment that those meetings do get covered. And as you can imagine, if we were to take on these meetings and hire adults, we'd probably have a revolving door, and or our budget would be different, as we would have to compensate quite differently. And then, of course, the contract goes through a lot of things of whose equipment and where are they located. So we talk about the municipal room, and that's a city room. The district office has a control center for their meetings, and that's another area. And then, of course, the school studio is kind of the facilities of it all. And the equipment, there is agreement that each partner will update equipment and keep the club running, keep the department in a position where it's useful and has the equipment it needs. AV support goes both ways, both faculty at school and staff for the city, purchasing and maintaining equipment, as I mentioned, and then, you know, trying to build partnerships, I think, as part of the AV support. For instance, right now I'm working with Ryan Clarenbull to work on getting a projector and screen in the forum room, though it's not a very difficult task to make sure it's what is needed and within budget and all those things. Helping him and working with him, that will also hopefully work with the equipment we already have in the municipal room to kind of extend the media services, if you will, in the library, will benefit all in that respect. This one perhaps is really good for the school district, but again, I think it's something the city can kind of tip their hat to in their connection to the community and the school district. A lot of these students are getting media literacy education that they're not getting in school because these classes are not offered. I think they're able to highlight not only the school and the students in the school, but highlight the community. And overall, I think they're getting a connection to their community that other students and other people of their age do not get, because they're not going out to Winnequa Park concerts and recording them, or they're certainly not going to council meetings, school board meetings, and other meetings. And even though they may be zoning out for part of it, they're still getting connected. They still come back to me and talk about something that was debated for 2 hours and they couldn't believe it. So they're getting that connection that they wouldn't normally get. So I think we can be happy about that. The radio station, of course, that's been a big success. And it really was over 6 years in the making. It started in 2015, and it really started with Lindsay Wood Davis. And I'm sure those of you who know him know that he is capable of many things. And so he really got this station going with Tom Tuber. That's who you see sitting down, is Tom Tuber. He is the one who really started in the programming side of things and had that vision along with Lindsay. And Lindsay's the one standing up. He really assembled a team of local professionals and engineers to get it going, to get everything set up professionally. And that was these gentlemen here were the main professionals. So in the bottom left corner is Paul Meyer. He's an engineer at Wisconsin Public Radio. He's also lives on Shore Acres Road, so he's a local community member. On the upper left is Mike Norton. He works for Wisconsin Public Radio. And on the upper right corner is John Bauer. He is the chief engineer for Midwest Family Broadcasting. So that's, over a handful of radio stations that he's in charge of. And on the left to him, actually, is his son that he brought in one morning to help him with some stuff. So it was a family affair. And when I say one morning, I mean when the station started, actually in March of 2014 is when we really started building the station. We took over City Hall in the hallway and the conference room for probably 2 to 3 full months every Saturday, building the station, because all these people were volunteering their time outside of work to get us going. And of course, we adopted the model that everyone knows, the hyper-focused local news and information with the blend of Americana music. And that's important because it really got local communities involved and local community organizations, of course, along with the city. And I put these logos up as just a taste of some of the consistent contributors to the station. And you can see it's somewhat of a wide swath of different organizations. Some of the programming, again, I just show this maybe as a way to say, look at how we have not only Monona residents involved, but also community members, which are coming from the west. I don't know if we have any West Siders, but we certainly have a lot of East Side community members that like to engage the station. But you can see we have a handful of Monona residents who are producing short little 2-minute segments about either Monona or about teaching kids outdoors, kids naturally. Monona Lowdown is former Alder Andrew Kitzlar. The Monona Bird Report is Mary Merle. I believe she is on the Landmarks Commission. So we have a lot of involvement in our community. And community-owned, locally programmed, volunteer-driven. I moved to that because that motto that we used right away not only really got the station local attention, but it really got us national attention as we really, oops, my fault. As we move forward, we saw that not only was, Isthmus, the Herald, looking into us and doing stories, but Radio World Magazine and Spark News, which are industry publications, but national industry publications were noticing us and saying, look at this model of community radio that is doing it right and is very successful. So I think that's a testament again to the city and setting the station up for success. I show this again. This is some of the music programs outside of the other segments I showed you. This is just strictly music programs. There's 18 there, and of those 18, 17 of them are strictly produced for WVMO. They originated on WVMO, and I think that's pretty cool that we had that many people involved, and they continue to be involved. So who are we? What do we do? When we look at it, we only have 2 full-time positions. I shouldn't say only, I should just say, but mainly 2 full-time positions. And right now we're currently hiring for that second position as we lost Justin Janis, who was a media coordinator. He went to New York in January, maybe one of the worst times to move to New York. We also have a limited term employment part-time position, and he strictly works for the radio station right now. He came to us in October of 2019 through the Department of Workforce Development, the Vocational Rehabilitation Program. So he did a great job. So for 3 months, the state paid his wages, but he did such a great job, and I knew that we would need his help, especially with Justin leaving. And as much as we have a lot of volunteers, we don't have people knocking down the doors to do the daily work, to do the daily programming, the daily organizing, the playlist and things like that. So he's able to do that, some of that daily stuff that needs to get done. So that's been working out great. And he works anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a week. And of course, we have a handful of Monona Grove High School student positions that kind of ebbs and flows as the club ebbs and flows. And then, of course, volunteers, very much like any volunteer organization, or I should maybe the Monona Senior Center, where they count on a lot of volunteerism. That's still our lifeblood. If we don't have volunteers, we don't really have a lot, because there's not too many people that are actually producing content for the radio station or the TV station that are actually getting paid. These are all really volunteers that are making the content. We're just making sure that they have the resources to do that. Okay, so we get to the challenges and opportunities. So where are we at now? What do we see as some of our challenges moving forward, and some of the opportunities? We'll start with challenges. Like many people, the impact of COVID-19, I see the biggest challenges right now on the AV Club and our future employees, our future student employees. We currently have about 3 members in the club, whereas 2 years ago we probably had almost 20, if not more. So that definitely took a big hit towards the end of the year. Budget, if we look at budget, we'll see that we do get franchise fees. Those are 5% of the revenue that AT&T and Charter receive from subscriptions in the Monona city, in the city of Monona. So you can see this is a kind of a graph that Mark put together. And we were in 2015, ironically, the year we started the radio station, we were flying high, getting a good chunk of money, if you will, from the cable companies. But as things shift, it has gone down. I took a snapshot here just of the last 4 years, so you can see the top row is the income yearly, and the bottom row is quarterly. For 2020, we only have the first quarter so far, or excuse me, the first 2 quarters, I believe, so far. No, I'm wrong. The first quarter, it goes pretty slow. They're not quick to pay. So you can see, 128,000, 124,000, 122,000. Now we're on pace here to be a little bit less. I did make the asterisk atop there that says 12,000 is from state revenue. Last year, the legislature passed a bill or a resolution that said that cable companies are only permitted to pay, if you were paying 5%, in 2019, you only have to pay 4.5%, and then in 2020, you only have to pay 4%. And the city taxpayers will make up the difference. So that means last year's revenue, this year's, revenue you're seeing in 2020 is 4.5% of the revenue that the cable companies produced. 0.5%, $12,000, is what we received from state revenue, taxpayers, me and you and everyone else. So if you split out 12,000 quarterly, we're going to add about 3,000 to this 27,700, which puts us at about 30,000. So if everything stays the same as the first quarter, we're going to be about the same as 2019. But what we've seen is that the numbers tend to go down a little bit, and you can see they're already trending down a little bit just in the amount of subscribers if you were to look at their gross revenue. So that's going to be a challenge. That's nothing new, and we continue to talk about that. I think that's been the talk of community media organizations across America for the last 15 years. But part of that challenge is the changing habits of you and me and the millennials who, I think I just read recently that 94% use their smartphone to get information. And in 2018, 33 million people kind of did the cord cutting, if you will. So there's certainly a trend, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to get creative with and really prioritize. Another challenge that I see is the consistent communication. I hate to use the word content because I think content's pretty generic, but essentially that's what it is. Content on the radio station, content for our social media to inform our citizens in the community. Though we do have great volunteerism and we have a lot of great things that we put on the radio station that we win awards for and all those great things, it comes and goes, and people get busy, so it's hard to stay consistent and keep that consistency. So I think we need to look at this from not just a department, but also perhaps how can the department continue to benefit the city. And I think that'll take everybody to think outside the box, or to continue to improve on, if you will, if that's the right wording. The struggles have always been for 5 years to try to get the AV Club involved in radio. It's not something they connect with. They connect with podcasts, but not necessarily broadcasting and radio. So that's always continues to be a challenge. And of course, volunteerism. The number of volunteers we had who were fired up and ready to go for the station in 2015 has gone down 5 years later, even though we still are. Everyone tells us how great we are, and we get lots of emails about it. People actually taking their time to help us and volunteer has gone down, and rightfully so. But if we go and we look at some of the opportunities that we can look forward to, or that give us some opportunities to move forward. Once we hired what I'm calling the media content producer, which is our previously the media coordinator position, I think we have an opportunity to really move the department forward and provide some communications, not only for the city but the school district, that I think will be beneficial for the community and hopefully assist the city in getting out some of those, some of the great things that the city does that tends to get hidden in the website because there's always something going on in Monona or always something happening, and it's so that's part of that keeping up with what's going down. WIPS, if you're not familiar with it, is the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service. They have a student journalism program, so I'm kind of excited about this. I'm hoping this will give us an opportunity to appeal to some of those juniors and seniors who are thinking about college and thinking about trying to get a leg up in that application process. So this is an organization that these students can sign up with and sign on to a radio partner or a media partner, which in this case would be WVMO, and they will pay the student if we cannot, or if with our agreement with them, to write content for the station based on our guidelines of what we'd like the student to do. So it's kind of in our purview to figure out what that student does, but they certainly can assist to make it happen in the financial realms. Typically it would be $20 a news segment, and we define what that news segment is. So nothing substantial as far as money, but at the same time, being able to say they were part of this program might give us the ability to get them involved when I previously haven't been able to, and I think that'd be a real beneficial to not only the district but the city. One thing we've always been talking about is repurposing video content for radio, taking some of the video work we do and turn that into some radio content. It seems like, just take the audio and put it on radio, but as you know, that's not really our format to take a lot of talk and put on the radio. And it's also radio you have to describe a little bit differently because you can't see anything. You have to really use more description. So it takes a little work, takes a lot of editing, and so that's always been a struggle. But again, I think that ties into that media content producer position. I've already touched on it, but I think as the department moves forward, we look at ways to benefit the city. We look at our budget, and we really sit down and have some real conversations about what our budget is, how much money we're getting, not only from the school district, but from the franchise fees, and where do we prioritize moving forward. Because clearly, when I look forward to a community media department, it's not going to look the same as in 1980, mainly because cable is not the same, because our habits are not the same, because we have lots of different outlets that people are using to get their information. So I think the challenge and the opportunities are finding those and being nimble enough to move with that, and not only from a technology standpoint, but from also just a creation standpoint of where we want to put it out to and who's going to do it and how are we going to do it. So that's, in a nutshell, the department and kind of where I see it right now. Those are all of our wonderful locations that you can find us. We are on Instagram, of course. but we tend to not use that as much, but that of course is another opportunity once we get full staffed. And that's what I got for you guys today. It's a little lighter than our previous topic, so that's a good thing.
Well, thank you, Will. Does anybody have any questions for Will? Alder Group B.
Me again, everybody. Well, we had talked a little while ago about the possibility of potentially renaming Monona Community Media to fall all within the purview of WVMO and sort of rebrand. Do you have plans to do that moving forward still, or what's the future of that?
Yeah, I guess one challenge I didn't add on there is the branding of both a WVMO and a community media. We have 2 Facebook pages. We have a YouTube page that says community media but doesn't say WVMO. We have 2 Instagram pages. So, you know, I think moving forward we have to look at what's the most efficient moving forward, what's the best from a marketing standpoint of how people are going to identify with us. There's certainly something to be said about having both of them, but there's also, I guess, an argument could be made that we could be a community media department, but external facing, we are WVMO to our audience and to everyone else. So I think that's something that the committee will have some discussions on and see where we go from there.
Anyone else? Alder Moore.
Will TDS become a player? Are they? I honestly, structurally, are they similarly? Do they play? Could we get franchise fees from them now that they're coming to town?
Oh, geez, you know, the speakers in here aren't that great. What?
I'm pretty sure we should.
Oh, TDS, thank you. You know what? That's funny. Mark and I were discussing that, and we haven't heard anything from them yet as far as, well, money. But we also have not brought it up with them because there's also they might also need money from us to get equipment to broadcast on their platform. So not that we don't want to do that. We just literally had this conversation last week. So we're trying to figure out, okay, who do we contact and what, you know, where do we need to go from here? Do they have subscribers already in Monona? I assume so, but I haven't got any numbers.
I think they're broadcasting here yet. I think they're still trying to line up people to take their service. We just had somebody come to the door last week, I know.
Well, and so here's the tricky part of that too. So part of this legislation that was passed, we turned in our 2019 numbers so that 2021 cable companies will pay 4%, taxpayers will make up the other 1% based on the 2019 numbers. And that's going forward for eternity until the legislation changes. On that paperwork we submitted, TDS is not on that paperwork. So even if TDS does come into the equation and we do get some of their money, the 1% will only be reflected on Charter and AT&T.
There's no way you can update that?
Not from my understanding, because we file it this time and then that's it, and they base it for eternity on that. There's no, amendments or addendums. But I am a member of the Wisconsin Community Media Board, so I'm in on a lot of those conversations as things change. I don't see anything changing in our benefit, but who knows?
And that's the state of Wisconsin taxpayers pay for that 1%, not Monona taxpayers are part of that, but the money comes from the state.
From the whole state, right? And I think the last numbers were $10 million on the state budget for compensating all the communities.
Okay.
Well, I would definitely, look further into that, Will, because I had somebody come to my door as well, and I know they are registering people right now, and they're anticipating launching this fall, and actually going live this fall. And I would be surprised, given how competitive their rates are in comparison to AT&T and Charter. if there would not be picking up new people, not just transferring from other services, but also picking up new people. And it seems to me, I can't imagine that they would be treated any differently. They're just using, you know, fiber versus cable. So, you know, from a franchise fee standpoint, it seems to me we should be receiving that income.
Well, and that will be part of the 4% once we get that agreement in there, because they have to pay us as part of a right-of-way thing. I'll let Mark comment, though. It looks like he's
Mark,
ready.
Yeah. So we did fill the paperwork for the state to get our 1% for next year. As far as TDS, I did get contact, and they did send me a form to fill out to start receiving our franchise fees. They will have a small amount for first quarter and second quarter. They didn't have anything for 2019, so it doesn't affect that number. So we will be starting to see it. Just they didn't send us the paperwork to get it filled out, so that is coming.
So they are providing some service in Monona already?
Very, very small.
Okay.
Very small.
And I will say, in a way, this legislation is benefiting us to the point that it's taking the 2019 numbers and giving us 1% of 2019. Whereas if we continue to see the numbers slide and slide and slide in 2023, we could be getting a lot less from that 4%, but it's still basing off that 4% from 2019, if that makes sense. So that 1% might be higher than it would have been if they wouldn't have done that. It's certainly not helpful, but there could be some benefit for a while.
Good point. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Will. We always appreciate hearing about the departments, and I know the committee's been working on that presentation for a while, so we appreciate it. And we
Thanks
appreciate
so much, Will.
especially doing the work of two people over the last several months, so.
Well, you know, I always tell people it's not necessarily more work, it's just a lot of different work because of the pandemic, right? Everybody's working harder but differently or something.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you anyway.
Yes, no, thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to the next item, which is the update on the staffing, budgetary, and city operations contingency plans for COVID-19. Brian, did you have?
Nothing real major to report. We are keeping track of all of our PPE expenses so we can submit to FEMA for partial reimbursement, which will then allow us to submit for the next cycle of the CARES Act funding. So we are monitoring that, and we'll be looking for the September cycle to submit that information.
Anybody have any questions about that? Nope. Okay, well then, I think we will have a motion to go into closed session, at which time anybody, I guess it would just be Susan who would have to step out. So is there a motion to go into closed session? To convene in closed session under Wisconsin statute section 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This is related to San Damiano and Public Safety Building. Is there a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
The clerk, please call the roll.
Alder Coor,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
You gotta give me host duties back.
Alder Moore,
I think she said aye. She just is muted.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Wood.
All right.
Okay, we are